Pro Nation, welcome to the Arm Wrestling Extra podcast. I'm one of your hosts. My name's Dave Stockbridge, and joining me, as you will be every week, is the man with the double biceps. It's a contractual obligation. It is Hollywood Matt Connolly, and thanks so much for joining us. We hope to bring you arm wrestling news every week here from live in the studio, as well as occasionally you might find us on the tables anywhere around the world, so keep an eye out every time you're arm wrestling. We could be around the corner with a camera and a microphone just waiting for you. So,
that's where we are most of the time.
Just waiting, just lurking, just. Matt, it's a joy to join you here, very first podcast, very exciting times. I always love the first episode of any podcast. You're never quite sure how it's all going to work out.
That's
but, mate, we were talking a little bit off camera about our first exposure to arm wrestling and how it is that we came around to the great sport. And how is it that you did find your way into arm wrestling?
Mine came through a documentary. I think most people, or several people that I've spoken to, have with John Brzenk, one of the all-time best arm wrestlers ever to have ever existed, and still in the top 10 currently in the world at the age of he's like 60 or something like that, 58 something. But so I run administrator for MMA Junkie, one of the USA Today's sites, and one of the forum threads that we had there was documentaries, and people would list different documentaries that they were interested in, one of which was the Pulling John documentary.
So you clicked on that expecting something else?
I did. I was like, that's right up my alley.
It's like a crossover between MMA and something else I'm interested in.
Well, hey, I didn't even read the description. I just went, hey, that's enough for me.
Thumbnail's got me.
It's like, it's some other thing. It's arm wrestling. No.
20 minutes in.
Right. Okay. Yeah. This is cool too.
Yeah.
So obviously watched that documentary and was like, this is really interesting, knew about John and all that sort of thing. And I'd watched a few matches and stuff on YouTube, but I hadn't sort of followed it in person. I didn't really look up to see if there was any clubs or anything like that. Until I saw it in Melbourne. I was over in Melbourne for the Arnold Expo, and they had a demonstration. I was like, they've got arm wrestling. I know what this is.
So you've been training for years, though. You know, you didn't get these biceps through arm wrestling. You already so bestowed with biceps. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Years in the gym. Arnold Schwarzenegger is my idol, so it's always been trying to follow the path of Arnold.
Is it now disappointing to you that Arnold Schwarzenegger never arm wrestled?
He might have actually.
Is there any evidence?
No, probably not.
I love the way you cast back to the memory banks there just for
a brief second. It went to the Predator scene with him and Carl Weathers, but I was like, that's not an arm wrestle, but it
it's close enough.
It's close enough.
Yeah.
I think he would have done well. He's a strong guy, but anyway. So yes, but
all-time hypothetical greats of arm wrestling. If only Arnold Schwarzenegger did it.
Yeah,
it would have been really good.
He would have been the best, definitely. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. But it's not pulling Arnold; it's pulling John.
Yeah,
So we had the demonstration at the Arnold Expo, and had to go on for the first time, and I was like, this is cool, and interested, and found out about the club back here in Adelaide. And they had Devin Larratt, who's a Canadian world champion, come through a few months later to do a seminar. Went along to that, met him. He was fantastic, met a lot of the guys from the club, and they said, why don't you just come up? And that's sort of how I got into it. And, went along and met, Tim, the Viking Graham, and the original OGs from the Adelaide Arm Wrestling Club, which, was originally set up in Tim Graham's driveway.
Yeah.
Before it has progressed to where it is now. But it has been one of those sports where I remember choosing.
Do you feel like you were on the ground level when it came to arm wrestling? Like you got in at exactly the right time?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's still one of those things where people go, is that a thing? Is that a sport? People do that? Yeah. It's like, I'll let me tell you about it, and you will put your arm there and I will wrestle you right now. And I have an arm wrestling table in the car.
Right,
so
just waiting, just in case.
That's right. And I've been arm wrestling people like 2 a.m. in the car park at where I work.
That's passion.
Legitimately. whether they want to or not.
So how long are you in now? 2 years, 3 years?
I think it's coming up on 4.
4 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
And do your arms still hurt after training for days? Or like how's your conditioning going since those early days to now?
Yeah, it's a lot better. I mean, I can recover probably. Well, it depends how hard I go on this. We normally train each Sunday night, and usually maybe 2 days later, I'm fine again.
Yeah.
Although this Sunday, like the first 40 minutes I spent with the Berserker last spotter.
So it's still recovering now?
I mean, literally am. I just wanted to keep going, and it was in strap, and it was like, it was just craziness. And then I would pin him, and he'd be like, just go again, just keep going. No, just keep going. And it was like, And yeah, after those first 40 minutes, you know, when you flex your forearm and you can see like it moving.
Yeah.
It was so pumped. There was no movement at all. It was a solid blob. It wouldn't stop it hurting. And then that was the first thing of a 3-hour training session. So yeah, they're sore.
What do you think hooked you with arm wrestling? Like to have been an avid weight trainer? Because for a lot of guys that have lifted weights over the years, you know, they'll do arm wrestling. It hurts so much, and they can't train, so they kind of return back to the known and leave arm wrestling to the side. But what hooked you about it?
It was a timing thing for me, like luckily, because if it was 10 years ago, I wouldn't have done it for that reason, because it's detrimental. Like your arms are so destroyed.
So you're married now. You technically don't need any more muscle mass. And
you always need more muscle mass. No, it was I'd been lifting weights for it's 21 years now. So 4 years ago, you know, obviously 17.
Do you put them down, or are you still?
I've got them in my pocket. These are dummy arms. I've got the arms underneath the shirt. These are them there. Yeah, but I had sort of done a lot that I'd wanted to do in bodybuilding side of things. You know, training for that long, I'd competed 7 times or something, and it was like, okay, I can see the path with this. I still enjoy it. This is fun, but there's never like you're not competing against somebody else like physically. You know,
yeah. So the combat side of things, perhaps, or the competitive nature of it. Whereas with bodybuilding, it's quite subjective, isn't it? Whereas with the weight training, it's completely objective. So when you're say a power lifter, I mean, you're going for weights, that's really objective. And arm wrestling, it's highly competitive, and it's one-on-one, and it's you're much more connected with your opponent, aren't you?
That's right, absolutely. And I think the culture of the club that we've got, and especially the people that I've met throughout the country and the people that I've spoken to throughout the world that do arm wrestling, very friendly, very humble, very willing to help you to get better and wanting you to get better. Yeah, which is interesting. Because
can't say that about all gyms, can you?
That's right. Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? But it's like if you beat somebody or they beat you, it's instantly it's like, this is what I did to win, or this is how you lost. Let me show you how to stop me from doing that. Yeah. You know, and it's like, and then the next week you're like, oh, I can't beat them now. I shouldn't have shown them that thing. But no, it's great because you all sort of get better. But yeah, that seems to be a really nice cultural feeling that the people in the sport all want everyone else to succeed and everyone to get better, and they love the fact that people are into it. And it's a very nice feeling to walk into the arm wrestling club. Everyone's welcoming. It's, hey, let me go. First time here, great. Get on the table. Yeah, I'll show you what to do. You know, there's no sort of big ego side of it. And I think one of the elements of that is that if you have an ego, you're going to just keep losing. Yes. You can't win if you don't know how to win. Yeah. Even if you're strong, it doesn't matter. Like technique will just destroy you every time because you can't use your strength.
BJJ in that way, isn't it? You know, the weight or the strength doesn't necessarily mean everything. It can help you if you know how to direct it, but you know, a big strong guy is always going to lose against a technical smaller guy.
Yeah. Especially if you don't know what you're doing at all and you're just trying to use your strength, then it's like, you know, immediately somebody just frames against that and pulls you out of your spot. You can't use your strength. You don't even know why you're losing. So if somebody refuses to learn or to listen or has an attitude, they're just going to keep losing and losing, and then they'll be like, this is crap, and you know, they'll walk out, and it's like, okay, well, we were willing to teach you, but if you're not willing to learn, then obviously it's not the right environment for you, and so you don't sort of find a lot of those people in clubs.
And did you see like pulling John and see John Brzezinski and think, well, he looks kind of human, and I'm a massive muscle man. Maybe I'll be the greatest of all time arm wrestler. Did that thought ever emerge?
I always think that I'm a massive muscle. That's my first thought of the day when I wake up. I go, I'm a massive muscle.
I'm
massive.
I'm a massive muscle.
Emphasis on massive. That's how you got to start each day.
I say massive 3 times before putting 10 scoops of Mega Mass 3000.
3,000 with the extra
always
calories.
strawberry. Into 50 ml of water because I'm cutting.
Yeah. Even though there's 8,000 calories in those scoops. If you have it with water, the calories just disappear. It all goes straight to the muscle.
Yeah, that's right. It's like getting a bottle of Bundy and 2 litres of Diet Coke. It balances out.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yep. If you're going to order a large meal at McDonald's, if you have a Diet Coke, you're absolutely fine.
You're fine. You're good to go.
The calories just they cut to zero.
Yeah.
They balance. They fight each other.
Yeah. The chemical reaction of the artificial sweeteners, it somehow has a neutralising effect on all food intake for the day.
Exactly, that's right. But yes, John Brzezinski, not being an enormous guy, he is he's in good shape. I mean, what is he? Probably around 6 foot, something like that.
Yeah, he's quite still good.
And between 90 and 100 kilos. So a strong athletic guy, but he's taking on these enormous 140, 160 like giants and beating them, and consistently for 30 years.
The Hoist Gracie of the arm wrestling world,
absolutely. And you think there's no way that this guy could win, and he'll prove you wrong every time. It's like, this is unbelievable. So it does show that there is so much to technique and to wrist strength and pronation, explosiveness. It's not just pure strength. Strength definitely has its factor, but there are ways to combat somebody who is stronger. So that's what makes it fun, is you've got that strategy element. Because if it was just down to who's stronger, then it's like somebody who is not as strong there's nothing they can really do. Whereas now you can work on different techniques and styles, and set up in a way that favors you and doesn't help your opponent, and you can hold in different positions and get them tired, and there's all sorts of different ways to win. Whereas, if it was just pure who's stronger, then I don't think the sport would be anywhere near as popular.
And is that some of the allure for you? Like it's now that you've perhaps given up on being the best arm wrestler in the world. Have you completely given up? I don't know if I pronounced. I'm not sure.
First episode.
First episode.
So now that you suck, and you know that you suck.
Is that what draws you back to the sport? Is it just the the sense that there's always I can always get better. Every week you're looking for an improvement rather than necessarily looking for results.
Yeah. I mean, I still try and train as hard as I can. I just know realistically the level that I'm at, and I'm seeing others just flying past me. Yeah, and it's like, okay, I can understand where my potential will take me. If I reached my potential, it would be nowhere near where it would be to be competitive at that highest levels. Yeah. But I just enjoy it. It's fun. Like, it's great. And
in spite of that, you're still, you're coming out every week. You love it, and you got a shirt.
I have. Yeah, I have a shirt with my own picture on it. It's of the double biceps. Yep. So
the iconic image we all think of when we think of Hollywood Matt Connolly.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's what's been fun about the growth of the club and the sport. So Tim the Viking Graham had been running the club for...
He used to be known as Tim Graham.
He did.
But
used to be.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
No longer.
Yeah, that's right. So that's one of the reasons.
Even his mum writes in the Christmas card to the Viking.
Graham, I hope she does. I'm going to do it.
Will be this year.
I'm going to make a fake Christmas card from it.
Slip it under the door.
And I'm going to write from Tim's mum. That's great. One of the growth aspects of the club. So it did go literally from Tim's driveway and maybe 5-6 guys to now we have a club with maybe 40 members, and we've got our own training facility. Tim did want to take some time to focus on other things. He still does arm wrestle and help out at the club, but he asked if I wanted to sort of take over the
day-to-days.
Yeah. So immediately I was like, well, I'm really enjoying this and this is fun.
Yeah.
Let's build this as much as I can and put as much effort and time into building this and making our club awesome. Gave everyone nicknames and started making content and videos and promoting the club as much as we could. And then obviously, we've got some amazing sponsors that have come on board as well with yourself, with the Real Estate Agents Group, which you can see on the shirt there.
Yeah, you can go with either bicep.
I went the wrong one because
there we go.
I was looking at it; it's mirrored. I was like, "That's the right arm." No, that's not. But and then you've assisted us to get into some of the bigger events around the state the last couple of years, and we've had some big exposure. And we're putting on events, and we have a big event coming up next month as well. So
we do. So lots to talk about. And Matt, before we do completely move on with that, so what is it that you do at the SA Titans? So you're the president of the club. I guess that's the ceremonial title.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you have done day to day in order to grow this arm wrestling club from a gaggle of guys congregating on Tim's driveway to now 40 or 50 people turning up on any given Sunday and pulling for 3 hours and competing in these events and what's been your magic formula?
Yeah, well, I think it was just because I'm enjoying it so much and trying to spread the word with it.
Yeah,
and having an acting background and video editing and that sort of thing. It was like, let's start filming.
Is that where
some
Hollywood
stuff.
comes from?
It does.
Okay,
That's where it is.
So you'll work it all in.
Yeah, right. It all makes sense now. It's all coming to a pass. So yeah, it was a way I could promote the club, and it started as just making highlight videos for each person, and then just taking some of our training footage and just putting their best moments together, and then giving them a funny nickname, and this is your nickname, the Engineer or the Viking or the Kratos or whoever.
And was this just whatever came to your mind? Like, I mean, you gave me my nickname with no permission whatsoever.
No.
It was just that before you know it, I've got people calling me Kratos, and I had no idea because I was a bit out of the loop. I had no idea what that was.
Right.
But I'm very happy that it's God of War. Like,
is.
I mean, if I could choose my own nickname, which I don't
you
think
could have.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who's been really upset about their nicknames.
No, I've had some. Well,
has there been any nickname controversy where there's been a bit of pushback? And
very, very slightly. Not that I've given them the nickname.
my dad was known as the octopus.
I refuse to be anything but the sea urchin. It's Puffer Fist or nothing. Yeah. No, I was mostly the nicknames come from somebody's personality or attribute or some style or something that they do, and it's like, okay, like Tyler Harrison, the Hitman. Hitman.
That's his technique.
Oh, his crazy explosive hit is just insane, and you could trying to stop that.
Yeah,
and it's the Hitman, so it's that it very easily came together.
Yeah,
Kratos, the God of War character from the video games, you resemble him very, very much. So it was an easy one.
This is what he'd look like if he was well dressed.
That's right. He was wearing a suit,
yes.
and he hadn't murdered thousands of people.
If he didn't need to,
yeah,
but he just wanted to get a bit dressy.
Yeah. And if you ran a podcast, then
So you spend some time, and why was it important for you to develop some of these nicknames? I mean, most people don't wake up every day and think, what can I call this person? and so why did you feel that was something that was important for the club and for arm wrestling?
Yeah, it's much easier to remember somebody by a nickname than it is to remember their actual name.
Right.
If somebody's Pat Smith or John Franks or whatever, it's you're not going to remember that name if compared to the Assassin or the Hitman or the Viking or whatever, because when you're watching a video and it's like you've got Tim Graham, it's like, okay, Tim Graham, or the Viking, it's like, that's the Viking guy, oh yeah, you're the Viking, yeah, and that becomes your sort of guy that you can follow. It's almost like a football team.
Yeah.
They've got the Bombers or the Crows or that sort of thing.
Was that something you'd seen elsewhere in arm wrestling at that time, or
Not in arm wrestling.
not in arm wrestling? It's interesting because you've seen it. I've seen it a few times since it started to pop up.
yeah.
So it's very interesting.
It is, yeah. I love giving people nicknames. I think it's so funny that when the new people turn up to the club I've never met, they've seen all of our content and videos and stuff like that. And they know all the
They know the nicknames.
Oh, that's the Viking. Oh, that's Dynamite. Oh, that's and who are you? I'm Paul. Oh, hi Paul. We'll have to change that soon. Yeah. Although we've got Troy at the moment, who's quite a good Paul, who's come down a few times from the country. I haven't picked up a nickname for him yet.
Yeah, we're working on one.
Yeah, I'll have to message him. Have you got any ideas? Yeah, but yeah, sometimes they stick out really quickly.
Yeah.
But I have had people that I've given like.
Have you had any pushback where somebody's going, oh, nah,
Yeah.
or yeah.
Yeah.
What was one of those examples without besmirching the?
No, that's fair enough. Well, just like I would say, I've come up with this. Like, what do you think? And then they'll be like, oh, I actually really wanted to go with this. So they might have had a name that they already wanted to use, and I say that's not a good nickname. So it doesn't suit you at all.
Yeah.
But if you want to go with it, then we'll go with it. It's up to you. Obviously, I'm not going to be like, no, you can't use it. But sometimes it's like, yeah, you sure you want to use that one?
Somebody's already using The Rock.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Probably not for you.
But it was fun to look at certain people when I was first doing it in the club and be like, okay, I'm going to come up with a nickname for this person. And then it'd be like, and trying to think of stuff. And it's like, maybe this. I had lists, big lists of nicknames, fighter nicknames. And I'd look through the UFC fighters and everything. And I'm like, does any of these like apply? And then none of them would, because it's like, no, it's got to be like organic. It's got to come from something that you've seen them do or an attribute that they've got. Which really,
it's got to come from the ether. It's got to be something magical about the nickname. It's got to occur.
Although Connor, the commander, that came just from ridiculous jokes that we were making in one of the group chat sessions. It did start as the Navy commander, which is just insanity.
Yeah.
But I don't think he pushed back a little bit against that for a while, and I was like, the commander. I shortened it to just commander.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of a cool nickname.
I think
well, that's a good nickname.
It's quite a commanding personality.
Yeah, it's like you're the commander of the table.
Yeah.
He wanted to change it to the Hook Doctor.
Well, that's not bad. But
it just reminded me of the Spin Doctors.
The Spin Doctor. Maybe think of Dr. Hook.
Yeah.
So, but isn't it interesting? It's got to come to you. It's got to strike a chord, and when it does,
That's right.
When it's a little bit off, as well. It's funny with nicknames, isn't it?
Exactly. But you look at, say, the wrestling. Like you said, The Rock. You got Mankind. You got Triple H. They're all nicknames, and people know them as these nicknames. They're easy to remember, especially if those nicknames really, really resemble or really hit, and they make that mark with that person, Stone Cold Steve Austin or whatever.
Yeah.
It's it becomes that thing, and it's like,
it's not Hunter Helmsley, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that wasn't the one that took off.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fun when I identify that, and those names really do hit. And then when I put the match footage and stuff together and upload it, it's like, okay, well, we've got the Berserker versus the Viking, and it's like, oh, this is interesting. Off the bat, it's like, oh, the Berserker's my favorite, or you're not going to remember the last spotter. It's like, or it's an easy way for the people who are watching content to identify with the characters, and the people who are in the video, and just say, well, if this guy's called, let's say, Berserker. Well, I wonder why he's called that.
It sparks the question.
And you will find out within 10 seconds of the match starting why he's called that.
Your arms are still feeling as to the effects of this right now.
That's right. Yeah. So it's fun when it really works and resonates. And I did see this happen. There was a short-lived YouTube series called the Strength Wars.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and they had nicknames for their top guys. They didn't have nicknames for everybody.
Yeah,
but it was their number one guy that was my favorite. His name was the Faceless, and he would wear a mask. And whenever he would talk, they'd overdub it with a robot voice. It was funny, but it was a little gimmick, But it was fun, and he was incredible. And the actual competition side of it was really well done, and these guys were incredibly strong. But just having that little gimmick was like, oh, this is cool. It's the Faceless, And then the other top guy was called the Anabolic Horse.
Yeah.
He would wear like a silly horse mask out to, So it was much, much more fun.
So we don't quite have the props in the club as yet. So which would be good if we can get some of those to match up.
Yeah.
So anyway, just something.
One of the guys has been bringing a monkey mask for the last 3 weeks.
I've noticed, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why he's doing it, but for sure, why not do it?
Yeah. Do we have a nickname for him yet? He's a new guy.
Yeah.
The monkey.
I haven't yet.
There's some work to do. So another thing you instigated was Super Match Sunday. So every Sunday in the club, and I guess this was during a time where in Australia there had been no real high level competition for the best part of a year or so during the midst of COVID, and guys didn't have the opportunity to test themselves against the rest around the country. So the Super Match Sunday series kicked off, and every Sunday in the club even till now, there's a super match going on, and sometimes multiple super matches.
Yeah.
So, and what's been interesting now that we're starting to see some of our local competitors that have grown up in arm wrestling, seeing a super match or competing in a super match every Sunday, that when they're finding their way into national level competitions, they're doing really well.
Yeah.
Young Hams is a fantastic example of that. A young 17-year-old who picked up arm wrestling a year or so ago and has been coming along to the club. And probably during the period that he's been coming to the club, I'd say he's had 20 or 30 super matches, which is it's like those little Muay Thai kids, those little Thai kids who they're 14 years old but they've had 700 fights. He's an arm wrestling version of that. So what was your thinking behind that? Because as far as I'm aware, I don't think there was another human being that matched up as many super matches in a row as you during that period of time.
Yeah, I think it came about pretty naturally. We would have a super match but they were rare. They were once every 3 months or something like that, and guys would sort of, really build themselves up for that, and everyone was looking forward to it. And I remember in particular was the Engineer versus the Viking, Tim versus Matt Bisco, and
they don't need real names.
No,
that's fine.
But that was probably maybe 2 months that they trained for that super match, and then we filmed it, and I cut the video together, and it was really exciting to do that. And it's like, oh, this was fun. Like, everyone enjoyed that, and it's like, we should do this more often. And I was
next Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, pretty much. Do it again, just now. There was always with training. Everyone's trying to learn the fundamentals and stuff, but if you don't actually have the match side of it, like the competition aspect, it's all great, well and good to be training, but if you're not constantly doing like an actual match, then it's not as valuable. If you do go into a tournament, or if you do go into a super match scenario, and you haven't got that experience, it's like, well, this, you really are missing that element. So
you see that with really talented young fighters in the octagon who don't have that experience, that big fight experience, and they get that big adrenaline dump in the first 30 seconds and find it really difficult to take care of their inner selves in those first rounds, and so often lose a fight or two before they're able to overcome that and get that under control, even though they've got the technical ability. And I can see that also in arm wrestling, where a few of our guys it's very much second nature, standing at the table for a ready go, whereas other guys that have been maybe just training around the table and not having that match fitness yet aren't quite prepared for those big moments.
Yeah, it's so different in a match compared to training. Obviously, in the training, you're gripping up with somebody, and it's like, you ready? Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, well, whenever you're, just go, and I'll sort of start resisting, or I'll, whatever. Whereas in the match, when it's you're actually getting properly set together, and then you're waiting, and the referee says go, and some people just boom, and you've lost in half a second. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
It's like, I can beat this guy normally on the training table.
I've seen that look on your face before.
Oh, yeah. Several times. Yeah.
And so the other thing that you instigated, just at a local level, was a ranking system, because during that period of COVID, there wasn't any competition going on, and the rankings nationally had become quite stale and probably irrelevant, and nobody really knew where they sat in the whole pecking order, and we're starting to see some of that sort itself out now. Why was it important to you to have a ranking system when there was only maybe, say, 20 people turning up on a Sunday back a couple of years ago?
Yeah, that competition aspect of it. I was resistant and a little bit hesitant to create a ranking system. We'd created the club. We'd had the nicknames. I built a website. I was putting content out consistently. We had super matches, and everyone sort of had an idea as to where most people sort of sat in terms of if you actually sat down and wrote a list of who's the best and whatever. But I was a little bit hesitant to do it because I didn't want to lose that friendly atmosphere of, this is fun. We want you to come in and enjoy yourself. And yes, there is a competition side of it, but I didn't want people to get upset.
Yeah.
But eventually I was like,
but you did it anyway.
I did. I did resist a bit, but I did end up creating one.
Yeah.
And it was...
was that more like, let's just do a list. Let's just see where all this sits in my mind.
To start with, I did a tier list, which is, the top tier, medium, and beginner sort of thing.
Yeah.
Not bottom tier, but beginner tier.
We all know where we start.
Right.
Yeah.
And that...
Some of us stay there, for instance.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. But it wasn't satisfying, but as soon as I put in those numbers, this is number one, this is number two, within the next week, people were going, oh, hello, Mr. Number 3, I'm number 4, like I need to have a match with you because obviously if you go and beat somebody, that's right. Yeah, it was so fast. The competition side of it picked up so quickly.
Yeah,
and people were like, I'm ranked 11th. Why am I ranked 11th? I'm like, well, because the people ahead of you, I think, would beat you.
We'll beat them.
Yeah. Well, if that's what the point of it is, if you think that you should be ranked, say 7th, then challenge number 7, and we'll put it together, and that's what happened. So and then we had 35 Sundays in a row with matches, which really sort of sorted out those rankings, and they were pretty accurate to where I had put them.
It was a pretty good guess in retrospect, and I think it also gave ambition to some of the younger athletes, citing Harmser once more, but for him to start off at 15, then beat number 10, and then beat number 2, and then to be on the table a week or two ago with maybe the number 2 guy in the state, and to win one of 3.
It was 2. Yeah, they came down. It was so you ended up being 3-2.
3-2. Sorry, and so to then pin himself against number 2, but he knew in his mind he could plot out a course to be number 1.
Yep.
And so now he's kind of knocking on the door of, he's definitely top 2 or 3. We know he's right up there now. So
that's right.
So it's interesting from the athlete's perspective, but also from the spectacle of the from those people that are spectators that are watching online, who then have an understanding that Kratos is number 12 and up against the Viking, and the Vikings number 4, for instance. And we know who our underdog is all of a sudden, and good luck to him, I think that it made a lot of sense to people that were watching, and made those super matches all the more watchable, and meant that people were vested somewhat into the in the bout before even knowing any of the personalities or anything else involved.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you're going to watch, I mean, we've spoken about this before, but
not on this podcast.
Not on this podcast.
No.
So it's our inaugural episode.
Yes.
So big fan of the UFC, and having watched their progression from 1993 when they first started, and then to the global
phenomenon.
massive company that they are now, and having built fighters and created these personalities and these shows and the way they promote things, it's like, being a really invested fan in that. And then it's like, well, I can apply those same things to the arm wrestle club, and I can make it fun and exciting and use the lessons that I learned from watching what Dana White and Joe Silver and all the matchmakers and the promotions team did to build the sport. So I know what they did. I saw it happen over 20 years.
Yeah.
And I can use those same elements. And it's like, I'm one guy, but I learn how to edit videos, make them look good, put stuff up, create shirts, create content, get rankings, do these things, promote this stuff, make events and run this. And it's like, okay, I know I can do that, and I'm willing to do it. So that's what's happened, and now
Have you got any rough estimation as to how many views all of these videos have had over the last couple of years? Like tens of thousands,
It's over 1 million, because
over 1 million, is it really? Wow.
Yeah.
So these little videos of Supermatch Sunday and some of the training sessions, they've over 1 million views in total.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's
Absolutely
one
incredible.
video on TikTok that has 1.5 million views or something.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is just crazy. And then, as I said, people have turned up at the club and they know who we are, and it's like, how? It's like, oh, we watch your videos all the time. It's like, really?
Somebody watching?
Yeah,
That's incredible.
Which is just amazing. But because there's not a lot of other people that are really doing that, and there might be, our club in Adelaide, the level that we're at, we're not world class. We have some good athletes, but we're not like the best in the world or anything like that. But you don't need to be the best in the world to put out good content and good matches, because if you know the people involved in the match and you've been following them and you can see the progression and you're excited to see their match, like Hamza the Hammer, going against the Berserker, and it was like, and
Well, I started cheering for Hamza,
Right.
thinking Hamza was the underdog, and then had to switch and start supporting the Berserker because Laz wasn't doing so well all of a sudden. It's like, my mind was blown,
He's incredible. I thought the Berserker was going to win comfortably, 3-0. I was like, 3-0, you got no chance. And then he won the first 2 rounds. I was like, how? He's so good. Obviously Berserker had to work really hard to get back and get the win, but amazing. But I would rather watch that match again than watch some of the top level matches that are out there with people that I don't really know very well.
Yeah, well, it's really been a real whirlwind over the last couple of years. We've had, very fortunately, we've been invited to be part of a few major sporting events, the Apex Sport Fest 1 and 2 at the Nord Oval, where we were able to showcase arm wrestling in front of thousands of people that walked through the gate that day, and held tournaments during that time, which I acknowledge is very difficult for, was very difficult for people interstate and overseas during that time. Restrictions weren't so.
Wasn't that difficult? I kept training with everyone every week, regardless.
Yeah. Well, there were jurisdictions where lockdowns were much more severe, and they weren't able. And but
harassing them.
But here in South Australia, things were a little bit more liberal, so we were able to hold a couple of major sporting events during those times, and we were fortunate that we were able to showcase arm wrestling as part of those events, but also importantly run full tournaments, so that we had some interstate talent come over and partake in those tournaments as well, and that kind of evolved and led to arm wrestling, the SA Titans Club being featured as part of Diamondback Fighting Championships, which is a big MMA promotion here in Australia, who hold their event locally at the Adelaide Oval, which of course is the mecca of sports here in South Australia and one of the great sporting arenas of the world. And so to elevate arm wrestling to a position where all of a sudden it's being held in front of 1,500 people in the sporting mecca of our part of the world was a wonderful joy to see, in large part because of your very strong advocacy for the sport and for all of that content that had been out there was creating a real buzz and awareness around the athletes. And so it was quite a surreal moment to see the arm wrestling table in the octagon in the cage, not to upset Dana White, in the cage, and to see our athletes go toe to toe over the table and show really the rest of the combat sports world on pay-per-view around the world exactly what arm wrestling's all about if they hadn't yet been exposed to it. So
yeah, I think that's literally one of the best matches and best productions that I've seen of arm wrestling ever in the world. I legitimately, and without, I mean, the fact that Diamondback Fighting Championship allowed us to be on the card, they were the ones that did the production side of things. So, that they were filming their MMA event, which is where, they filmed arm wrestling stuff as well. But in terms of the way it worked and the way it was filmed and, there was commentary and exactly. There was, multiple replay angles and it was like, wow, this is incredible. This is what it's really like.
Really what arm wrestling should be. Or should be how people should be watching arm wrestling, perhaps. And of course, over time, your thoughts over tournaments and how things could be presented has certainly evolved and changed, and we're about to see on the 8th of October a whole new way of doing things.
It would be the 9th of October.
Oh, sorry, what did I say?
But it's the 9th.
If you get here early and line up, tickets will be less
because it won't be open.
But it'll be right here in Moonshots, in the Imagination Building, Hyde Street in Adelaide, in the Innovation Precinct, and we'll be holding a tournament, but a tournament with a twist, Matthew.
Yes. So it's called the Titans Open. It's the 9th, Sunday the 9th of October.
The Connolly Classic.
Yeah, that's right, the Connolly Classic. Yeah, so the difference with this tournament, so we've got our standard double elimination. There's weight classes. Everything's pretty much the same except for this. Yeah, except for this one change, which is that all matches will start in the strap. There is no starting without the strap.
And what's your thinking behind that, Matthew? Why are you making these guys strap up from the get-go?
Because they end up in the strap anyway. Yeah. And it's like every match, it takes time to set people up in the right positions, and there's a lot of jostling around, a lot of manipulation people are trying to do in their setup to get their best position. Referees trying to keep it as fair as possible, and it might take 30 seconds to a minute to get people lined up, get them fair, and then you say go, and they just both guys immediately they both knew they were going to slip from the start.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to slip somebody if you really want to. If you set up in a certain way and it's like, I'm going to slip no matter what, unless the other person knows that you're going to do it and is able to sort of grab hold of your hand and catch your fingers, you're going to get away. And it's like you spend all that time getting them ready. Everyone's watching. The build-up has happened. This is the moment, and you say go, and they just go.
There's a lot of manipulation or even abuse leveled at referees as well as the athletes are trying to get set up, and largely unnecessary. Although I do understand gamesmanship and the fact that everybody's trying to get the advantage, and in arm wrestling in particular, everything comes down to micro moments and millimeters, but. The reality is it's absolutely awful for the officials that are maybe standing over a table for 4 hours trying to get people set up who quite obviously don't want to be holding hands.
That's right.
So that's a wonderful innovation in as far as I'm concerned, and I think a great progression, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how that pans out. But also the athletes that are competing are also aware that they'll be competing straight to straps.
That's right.
And so are now training for that.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting innovation.
Yeah, one of the other reasons is that you get a finish to the match. Like you get a conclusion if you're strapped. It's not like you're losing and then, oh no, I'm going to lose. I'm going to make it look like and then, oh, my hand slipped out. Because that happens a lot as well. And it's like there is a rule in place if you deliberately slip that you lose, but it's very rarely enforced. So it's like if you're strapped together from the start, you're probably more than likely, unless there's a major foul that Yeah, and we do running fouls for that reason. We want to see an end to the match. We want to see you start and finish the match straight away.
Well, people get upset when there's an arbitrary enforcement of the laws, but then they get upset when the laws are firmly enforced.
Yes.
And so it's very, very difficult for the ref and to find a happy middle ground. But I think straight straps is great and better for the viewer. And easier for the editor, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, but it is about the viewing experience because when I edit videos now, I don't include the slips. I just don't because it's pointless. It's like that wasn't even a match. There's no match there, and there's no interest in it. It's like, well, even if it was like close and then they slipped, it's like, no, I'm deleting that. I'm not putting that up because it's like I want to see the end of the. I want to see it start and finish. I don't want to see you almost win and then the guy got away, and it's like it's just annoying. It's an annoying experience, and especially when people are setting up, both of them are going to slip, and it's like even if one's trying not to slip and they think okay the other guy's slipping every time, it's bloody hard to be able to catch somebody to stop them from slipping away, and it's like this is silly. It's annoying to watch this as a viewer, the people that come along, the friends and family that want to see a match, and they're going, "What happened? Why did they? What are they doing?"
Makes it harder to understand the sport.
That's right.
Gridiron, the stop start, and unless you're really into it, the chances are you're never going to get into it.
That's right, and especially because they might start and they both push for a second and then the hands flip apart and everyone goes, oh, and it's like, well, what happened? And especially if somebody calls a loss there, like, oh, it was, deliberate. And it's like, well, you haven't called that for everyone else all day.
Yeah.
So it's tough. And I'd rather eliminate all of that. And the strap does do that straight away. You strap together, it's harder to move your hand around. So when you are strapped together, as a referee, I find it much easier to get a fair start. I can see where people's hands are before I tighten it. Once I tighten it, it's harder to move your hand. And if you are trying to move it, your opponent is like their hand is being sort of pulled. So they know when you're doing something and it's pretty obvious. Whereas out of strap, you can sort of do it a little more sneakily. But I would rather see a fair match, start and a finish every single time. Next person, next match, start and finish every single time, rather than getting these start, stop, slip, foul, restart. It's like, can I just see the match? When are you guys actually going to? I've seen matches that have gone for 10 minutes and there was somebody lost on fouls, and it was like they started 4 times. And it was like,
did I just waste 20 minutes of my life?
It's like, oh, that guy won. You're like, when?
Wow. And in what way?
Oh, he fouled twice with this, and there was 3 slips, and it's like,
would his mum be proud of that victory?
No, exactly. As an audience member to watch that, as a fan of arm wrestling, I've seen like world championships, and I'm like, I'm bored out of my mind 10 minutes into this because it's like there's no matches, there's no arm wrestling.
It is a criticism of WAF, isn't it? So. And then we've got the tournament. So double elimination, straight to strap, weight categories, 70, 80,
under 95,
95
and above,
and then where we are. Yep. And so we got those ones, and then we've got anything extra for the day for the viewers. Is there really?
There is an exciting new development.
Some sprinkles on top, maybe.
That's right.
Okay.
This was an idea of yours, I believe.
Might have thrown it in the hat.
Which I thought was fantastic. And basically, one of the training tools that we've done in the past is something called King of the Table, where it's basically winner stays on, and you keep going, and then when the winner loses or the king loses, then that person who beat them, they take their position.
They are king.
They are the new king until they get taken down. And the longer it goes, the more tired that people get, and somebody who's quite strong and quite a really top level person has had to have 30 or 40 matches, and now they're exhausted, and then losing to people that they would never lose to. So with your idea and what we have implemented for the tournament is what we're calling last man standing, which is we have a 60-minute time limit, and it's like, okay, let's say 20 people start, and it's basically a king of the table scenario. First 2 people get on, winner stays on, next person. Winner stays on, next person. Keep rotating through.
So the combatants they'll filter through, compete against the king until the king is knocked off.
Yeah.
And then they become the king. And at the end of the hour,
Yeah, on the dot on the 60-minute mark, whoever is king will win $500.
not bad.
That's
not
pretty
bad.
damn good.
And also for time. So you might have been the guy that was standing on the table for 58 of the 60 minutes, and so if you're the athlete that had the longest period of time as king, then you will also win $3.80
A ham sandwich.
and a ham sandwich. It may have a couple of bites out of it, but you'll also win $500. So yeah,
What, really?
is it $500?
Well, if you're making that announcement.
Oh, well, apparently I've just made it. It's $500. So $500 for most time on the table, and $500 for the king of the table.
Wow.
So
And who's that brought to you by?
that
By
one's-
Real Estate Agents Group. I got the right arm that time.
you got it on both sides.
Yeah.
The other shirts we've only got it on one side, so this is
right.
the sponsor's very
Doubled
pleased.
up.
I love it. It's great. So Real Estate Agents Group. All of these shenanigans are brought to you by Real Estate Agents Group. So, but yeah. So so we've got we've got normal tournament, serious tournament, straight straps.
Yep.
Everybody, lots of weight categories. Very very traditional in almost every respect except straps.
Yep.
And then
Yeah, so you have your weight categories. If you come first or second in a weight category, you qualify for the overall. And if you win the overall on the right arm, it's a $1,000 top prize, first prize for right arm. We're still working on the cash prize for the left arm. There will be a left arm overall as well, but
maybe.
yeah. Might be another ham sandwich.
Yeah, might be that. Yeah,
It's the
we'll
other
bring it
half.
back. Yeah.
It's the bitten pieces.
Yeah. There'll be a bit with ham that's stuck on the bread, and then on the other side there'll be the cheese.
Yeah.
And between them, so
Right.
it is left.
It might be one of those Balfour's chocolate donuts when they're in the plastic cover, and when you open the cover, all the icing gets stuck
off
to
the
the
top.
other
So
plastic.
you're forced to lick plastic. Yeah,
And then you've got
no one eats the donut.
a piece
in
of
that scenario.
dough that was a donut.
Yes.
But you can eat that.
You could.
It's got no flavoring, but all the flavoring in the icing is stuck to the top of the lid.
Yeah.
You could get one of those for left hand.
I like this. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So there'll be some kind of food stuff for left-handed
Right.
prize winner. Yeah, I mean we haven't got that locked down yet.
Right.
But there's still a few weeks to go, and if so if athletes are either hungry or wanting to win prizes, that they can spend at any shop in Australia.
Yeah.
Then they can. What do they have to do to register to enter?
Yeah, so they can. Well, they don't have to officially register
They don't have
prior
to.
not prior
They
to
just
the
turn
event.
up.
So if they arrive, so registration will be between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. on the day. So you can just turn up to here. 54 Hyde Street in Adelaide is the address. It is the Imagination Studios building,
Yep.
and
We'll have some signs out the front. You know
Yeah.
what's going on.
that's right. You'll probably see a lot of people with big forearms, and that's probably you know you're in the right space.
Yeah, speak to your Uber driver. He'll know what's going on.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He knows about it,
Yeah,
and he's in on it.
yeah. Just an Indian guy with giant forearms.
That's right.
Yeah,
So, but between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m., if you are going to compete in this tournament or at all, at any level, in the last man standing, in anything, you need to be here between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. You will need to fill out a registration form, and if you are entering a weight category, you will need to weigh in, and I will have scales there, and you must weigh in. So
no towels.
you're not leaning on the towel. Yeah, that's right. So one element that people might not be aware of in terms of weight. So if let's say you're entering the 70 kilos and below tournament, then 70.9, I'm still classing that as 70 because
Okay.
there is discrepancies between scales, and it's still a 70 kilo weight, even if 70.9.
You'll take it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's you'd find that across most fighting organisations. They will give an allowance because scales are
Yeah.
certain accuracy.
Yeah.
So I'd rather say, because they might be 70 on their scale at home,
Yeah.
and rather than be like, no, you don't match, you can't compete. It's like, well, no, I understand there is a difference between my scale and your scale with whatever. So 70.9 will still class as a 70 kilo.
Okay.
So if somebody is cutting weight, which I hope they're not, but
Yeah.
then that is a comfort to them that they can be 70.9.
Well, if you are cutting weight and after you have weighed in, well, there'll be plenty of opportunities for rehydration. We'll have the bar fully stocked, all ready to go. So, so athletes will be well cared for the day. So we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be an awesome event. Yeah. I can't believe we gave up on the Matt Connolly Classic game, but I'm really happy with the Titans Open. So if there's any arm wrestlers anywhere that are tuning in today that love the idea of what they've just heard and want to try their arm, then the 9th.
The 9th, Sunday, the October the 9th, be here at 1 p.m. between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. to register. Even if you're competing in heavyweights, you don't have to weigh in if you're over 95 kilos. If you want to go in that's fine. And you can enter as many weight categories as you want, as long as you meet the weight requirement. So if you're 60 kilos in weight, you can enter every category. If you're 100 kilos, obviously you can only enter the over 95 kilos.
But you don't have to weight cut.
That's right.
So
and you don't have to weigh in if you're entering that category because obviously it's the heavyweight category. We go, But the last man standing, So that will be after the overall, deliberately.
Yeah.
Because I want people to be tired.
Yeah.
I want there to be the opportunity for anybody to be able to win.
Yeah.
Because if you run it at the start, I mean, people would probably, maybe they would avoid doing it because they want to be fresh for the tournament. But if you have it afterwards, it's like people that have gone really hard throughout the tournament to win, they're going to be less dominant going into that event. So, and it is what somebody said, can we make it 30 minutes? And 60 minutes is quite a long time. I'm like, it's for $500. It's got to be difficult. It's called Last Man Standing for a reason. It's like, if you want to drop out. That's what the point of it is. Like, if you're finding it too difficult, eliminate yourself and keep going, and you won't win that $500. But ideally, somebody who's a heavyweight might get so exhausted that somebody who's a lightweight could potentially be beating them and winning that $500.
So our best suggestion to all the athletes is not to drive here, because there's every chance you won't be able to drive home. Right. And to be safe, get yourself an Uber, organise a taxi, or ask Matt Connolly's mum. So either way, any of those, that's all fine. So Well, thanks so much for joining us, Pro Nation Nation, here on our very first podcast, Arm Wrestling Extra, and of course, a whole lot more of these will be coming your way over the coming weeks, and of course, as we nudge closer to the Titans Open, we'll be bringing you more news with respect to that, and athlete announcements as we get closer to the big day. So, Hollywood Matt Connolly, give us some double biceps just for the people. Obviously, if they've hung in this long, this is what they've hung in for. Right. There you go. It's looking pretty good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's very washed out. I always have to put the contrast up in the edit so that I can actually see my arm.
I think we need some spray tan or just something. Anyway.
It's because I'm pale as a ghost. So
yeah, and on the inside as well, it's
yeah. I did get sunburnt when it was raining once. Legitimately.
Yes. Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll look forward to bringing you more of the podcast next week. I'm Dave Stockbridge.
Hollywood Matt Connolly.
See you next time.